In the following panel, we will be listening the experiences of Guatemala and Panama, and they will be talking about the conceptual framework for the financial information of the public sector. This session will be moderated by the manager of Ernst & Young in Germany and member of IPSASB, Muriel, Sánchez, Nicosia. Thank you very much. Good morning. Now, I have the great pleasure to be the moderator of this panel, and we will be sharing the experiences of the countries of Panama and Guatemala, and we will be talking about the conceptual framework for the financial information of the public sector. We have the accountant Clara Santiago de Barrios, graduated from the San Carlos University of Guatemala as public accountant and auditor. Nowadays, she is an accountant director of the state in the Public Ministry of Guatemala, and she has many years in the Secretary of Public Finance and also serving as task accountant and incorporating to the accounting staff of the state, and then work in the internal area and also work in the liabilities of the state, financial statements and assets, and then went to the Department of Accounting, and in 2013 was the director of that department. Among many participations, we can say that she was a member of the College of Professionals of Economic Science and now represents Guatemala as the member states in the Forum of Governmental Accountants in Latin America, FOCAL. In 2014 up till now, she is the Director of Accounting of the state. Clara Hernández Santiago de Barrios will be talking about the experience in implementation of NICSP in Guatemala. We also have the accountant Aracelly Méndez Núñez. She is the National Director of Accounting of the Secretary of Economy and Finance in Panama. In that secretariat, she was the Director General of Public Credit, and she was the leader of many negotiations and issuance of debt after the restructuring of debt, as well as the development of the domestic market of the public debt in Panama. She was a member of the annual meetings in the World Bank and the Monetary Fund and IDB, and also replaces the delegate of the country. She is the leader to carry out the processes and systems as the new model of public finances under the SISMO system. And that system integrates the public accountant and the budget system and financial core. And she is knowledgeable in different modules and also in eTax2 system. She has a bachelor's degree in accounting and a postgraduate degree from the Panama University. She has an MBA in Antigua University. She has a postgrad of high management in ICAE. She has given conferences on finances, market capital, risk management, and public management at national and international level. From 2014 to 16, she was a member of IPSASB, and then from 2017 to 2019, she was also a member of IPSASB. So I will give the floor to the accountant Clara Hernández Santiago de Barrios. Thank you very much, Kamira. It's a great honor to be here with such a selected group of guests. I was talking with Kamira. We didn't meet physically before. Everything was virtually. But in spite of that, we met by video conferences during the pandemic. About the experiences in the implementation in accounting and international standards, or NICSP in Guatemala, I want to talk about the norms that demand the implementation of NICSP in Guatemala. In the legal basis that we have in the organic law of the budget, decree number 101/97, I will read it. because this law was issued by the Congress of the Republic of Guatemala in 1997, and it sets forth that the accounting integral system must respond to the needs of the financial information records and doing physical, reliable, and timely implementations according to the characteristics that are stated in the international accounting standards and the best practices. In this article, the law establishes the mandatory level of the implementation, and the regulation of the organic law, and in the government agreement 540/2013, it is said that the Secretariat of Public Finance, due to a ministerial agreement, will establish the guidelines to implement the standards gradually and progressively. This very important standard established the issuance of a ministerial agreement as mandatory. In 2019, the minister that was in the position issued that agreement, where it is said that there are four main rules. First, it must be through the indirect method by approving the implementation of NICSP in Guatemala. Second, the governance will be in charge to the accounting department of the state. Third, that it will be gradual and progressive. And last, that it will require the support of all the entities that will be working directly, and these entities are the Presidency of Republic, state secretariats, other departments, and other entities of the country. Nowadays, we work with this group of entities. Approximately, there are 42 entities that constitute the executive power. When I talk about the indirect standard, well, we need to create a national standard according to the requirements established in the NICSP. It must be precise, communicable, understandable, and harmonizing with the accounting policy in place, and respond to the financial information requirement. And we develop a strategy. We develop a strategy to cover the implementation of NICSP, where we define 9 stages. Among these stages are, in the first circle, analysis of the norms. This analysis is done by the accounting team of the state. And I take this opportunity to convey them my regards, because they are connected through the website. This analysis set for the general and specific requirements versus the legal standards of the country. We take each standards and we analyze it, and we see what the standard is needing. And we make a cross-reference, and we collate it versus the existing legal standard. And so, with the support of Andreas Berman, that has helped us a lot in this regard, we have been able to establish some standards that are not applicable for Guatemala, but they have been recorded, consulted, and duly investigated, because it must be very seriously done. And we have a file for each analysis, and there we can say why at that time was not applicable, because time can also change. And then we continue analyzing the standard, and it is necessary, as we consider, create task forces. These task forces will work a lot and will have all the team members of the executive power of the presidency state, the Secretariat of State, and other kind of secretaries of the executive. These task forces participate.
Of all the analyzed norms, we've seen around 50 round tables of dialogue. And how do we select them? We analyze the spirit, the nature of the norm, and we analyze the entities or agencies that can participate in the round tables of dialogue depending on the nature of their operations. But before this happens, before we constitute round tables, we need to train our people so they can understand what the norm states. I mean, they should be capable of giving us the information that each entity has. So then we can create a set of questions and interviews. And at the end, when we reach agreements with specific entities, the accounting directive unit and the team and generates an official document, a minute of understanding there, depending on what the agreement was. Then we have to identify the gaps. So with a gap analysis, we can continue debating in our roundtables, and we have the right room to discuss accounting issues, economics, computer science, disciplines, and others are studied. These gaps could be narrowed. And there's also loopholes in the law that are very complicated. That's why we decided to use the indirect method. Guatemala has a lot of regulations, and due to the existence of these regulations, we have to go through the analysis or gap analysis. Some laws can be object of an amendment, but there's laws that are difficult to amend, like the charter or the constitution of Guatemala. If we identify the gaps in the law, we can narrow them. So we can align those norms with IPSASB, with the other norms. And in that cycle, you see, first we have the proposal of accounting norms for government. And in that module, or in that first part of the cycle, the NCG proposals are born based on IPSASB. We just had a practice. We just had a specific exercise. We worked with NCG 1, and that norm is about the presentation of the budget execution. That norm, that NCG, is based on IPSASB 24. That's called presentation of the budgets exercise in their financial reports. That norm, or IPSASB, and that NCG norm is about to be sent to the chair of the Ministry of Public Finances. He is the only one that can authorize the norm. But I want to open brackets now. Before that instrument is escalated to that authority, we had to consult IFAC at the time being, because we consulted IFAC because we didn't have clarity about what we should do with the IPSASB norms without having them enter into conflict with property rights or author rights. So we opened a conversation with Michelle Brole, and Juan helped us a lot. Our dear Juan also helped us a lot to open that bridge of communication with Michelle Brody, because we wanted to discuss with him the inconveniences to make if there was something inconvenient about making a public domain our NCG. She compared the norm, and she analyzed the wording literally, and we were looking for indicators, and we didn't need to, collect a tariff due or any payment. There was no payment due to the publication of the norm. She told us that if that changed in the future, we need to go through the proper permitting to produce the standards. We considered it's convenient due to copyright there. But we have to build this and achieve the right maturity level. And I'm always asking for your support. Vince has always supported us. And we're trying to find the ways of making our process formal for us accountants to continue developing and working on the publication of the norms, our norms, and the norms of each country. I know that we can all see that in that circle that you have in the screen, you can see there that I was talking about the approval, the step of approval. Then the next step is the tool, the developed tool from computer science. Yesterday, we were talking about, or I heard some people talk about, I heard Mr. Bottom say that you ask your IT department to develop something, a tool, and they create a tool or develop something that we don't need. And in 2013, the Public Finance Ministry modified its internal law, and the Department of Accounting of the government or the state assigned, we've been the top authority, but that department assigned us a task. We had to work on case studies and work systematically on the creation of the system. Based on that, we have that account, but when we have to develop something for the system to work, first we define the system's concept and definition. Then other stakeholders report the cases of use of that development, and they're escalated to the computer science department that belongs to the Ministry of Public Finances. So there's two departments that are supported by the Ministry of Public Finances, and their mandate by law, they have to develop the system for accounting entries, and the state has to define the concept of that system that's developed. So that's how we can see how there's roles, duties, and we segregate these. And that segregation has helped us a lot, because when the Department of IT or Computer Science tells us that the norm in our case study, that the systems developed for the government's accounting department reviews the case study and goes through the tests and trials which are necessary, because in our system, we have a database. Once all that process is reviewed, we have to develop something new, and that new development is sent to be compatible to the Psychogen system and its database. This operation has been beneficial, and once the next SP norm or next NCG norm is admitted, we see how it impacts the exercise of government budget. All of those modules are in the QA database. We have to wait for the approval of the maximum authority of the Ministry of Finances. So then it's go live, and we can kick off that project so our institutions can use it. Okay, after that, we include the norm. Even if we include the norm, we have to train the professionals. The internal professionals and external professionals have to be trained. Our laws and regulations cannot just be uploaded into Psychogen or in that system if the professionals in the accounting department are not trained. First, we need to train our professionals in accounting so they can pay the close attention to all the queries that other government agencies ask us. Once our professionals in accounting in that department are trained, then we can be multipliers and train other local government officials so they can, at the right time, kick off their consultation process or inquiry in the system or interface using the tool. We have round tables in which we debate all the questions of all the entities, professionals who receive a response from our team. Our team or that round table verifies that consultation can be given an answer. If not, that question is sent to the Department of Computer Science or IT, to the Technical Budget Division. It can be escalated to the National Treasury Department, and those answers should be timely answered. So that's why it's so important for the internal professionals in the accounting department are trained. Later, after we trained our professionals, now we have to analyze what's happening in each entity and how they kick off or go live with their operation in that system. So we have NCG1, that norm, and by that time, the authorities can kick off operations and submit the budget exercise reports as it's expressed in the wording of NICS-SP 24. By then, in that time frame, when those authorities generate those reports, we can say then that the norm has been implemented. Then I'm going to speak about the conceptual frame of it all. The conceptual frame was passed. It was approved back in 2019. And in 2019, as I've said, and the conceptual framework, well-defined, is drafted into 7 chapters. I'll briefly share those chapters in the slides. Number 1, the authority of the conceptual framework to have financial information with a general scope and purpose. It has a second chapter that correlates to all the definitions of all the stakeholders in the public sector. The third chapter, its objectives, users of the financial information with general purpose. Number 4, qualitative characteristics of that frame. These, number 5, is the elements of financial statements, acknowledgement of the elements of those financial reports. And the last chapter is called measurement of the elements of our financial reports. I'll go to the segment of challenges. I know that we're all facing our challenges, and we have to cleanse out the tools, the balances. We have to use computer science tools. I know that there's another department that has to focus on developing the systems for the state. The department focused on accounting can't just go to the technical or IT department of the state and tell them, I need you to develop something for a specific case study. Each professional has its way of programming, and we need to have awareness of the norms, NICS-SP. There's resistance, that's a challenge. The involved parties might represent a resistance, but the government of the Republic has passed 2 norms. All the schools in the school system of my country, based on the mandate of the Ministry of Education, can eliminate from the list the assets that do not serve them anymore. They can eliminate them easily. There's another article that the substantiation in the budget law, and in the wording, all the agencies that correlate to the executive must constitute commissions to cleanse out the specific numbers. That constituted entity, that commission, has to be constituted by a financial expert, an auditor, and the Department of Accounting of the government has to be the advisor of that other constituted table. Thank you so much for your attention. We thank Clara Hernández, accountant. Thank you so much for sharing your experience when implementing the norms in NICS-SP Guatemala. Now it's Aracelly Méndez, General Director of Accounting in Panama. She will be talking to us about her experience in her country when developing the model to properly manage accounting with computer science developments. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon. I know it's that critical time of the day, the time that our colleague Ramon doesn't like. I know that right now it's my turn to be working in this critical hour, but in effect, I'll try to make this time I want this time to lead me to be specific, clear with my explanation. So first of all, I'd like to explain that I'm honored to be part of the panel and the podium. I've participated, we're sharing, and we know that we are counting the days in our calendar until finally our forum at Focal has happened. And we're here together, face to face. I repeat, I'm so thankful to our hosts nation. We thank the team of hosts that's led by Juan, and I've been very thankful for everything that we've witnessed that leads us to achievements, to results after 3 days of forum, of seminar. We have a tight agenda or tight program, and we know that what we've learned here are lessons learned that will help our countries and agencies. The core subject will lead me to explain 7 points in my presentation. This is the intro. We analyze the conceptual model and its strong points when we're trying to build financial solutions that enable us to build a system that ecosystemically will help us with our mandate. We have the development of a conceptual model, so we develop an institutional tool or system, and there's clear elements that constitute the conceptual model. We want to analyze the objectives that we all have in public accounting for government, and the management systems that enable us to analyze the public reports. Now, the conceptual model at Panama is like a case study based on our own experience. And the implementation of the conceptual model is a model of reference, and I'll talk to you about the implementation of it. In our case, the system that was developed is called ISMO, the Roadmap for Next Steps in Public Management. In the next steps, we're going to review the conceptual model that was built and what we use. In general terms, as an intro, I want to speak about one of the subjects that all our jurisdictions pay close attention to. What's factual here is that, we work with information. The information is the engine that has triggered the development of all these initiatives. There's demand of information, accounting entry information. That access to information should be easy. And we have to guarantee transparency, reliable data. That's part of our activities on a day-to-day basis in all our countries. After the pandemic, even more so, right? So these are part of the challenges that we're facing in the public sector. The government has dedicated its efforts in the past 2-3 decades to. We have faced changes. We're going through the amendments of the laws of public finances, and with the reform projects, we know that we have to work in 2 main fields. First, we need to develop computer science systems for public management and public administration. The systems generate significant improvements because we have the results. We're clearly looking for results in the fiscal or statistic affairs of government. So at the end, we're trying to create, government transparency when the government exercises budget. This impacts our institutions. We use these systems in our agencies, and we're facing different situations. We see cases of failure, cases of great success. I want to highlight the experiences that impede there's cases that are experiences and they're failures. We adapt to change. There's errors in the sequence of implementation of the developments. We have specific capacities of operation. The challenges are also the resistance of our people, Governance are also challenges. The complex process enables us to allocate government budgets for a sustainable project that satisfies the needs that we have. We allocate efforts, resources to define things clearly. If we're going to kick off complex projects like these ones, we need to know the scope or the general scope and have clear objectives and understand the general scope of the project before we proceed to the phase of implementation of systems that were developed by computer science experts. All of these problems have been discussed during the previous presentations. We've analyzed the cases with different focus, but I mean, we've all been listening to all these comments objectively. We try to achieve efficiency and handle well all of the information we receive, and in parallel, we implement the norms and these systems that should work correctly when we integrate them, that would help us in the decision-making process. We can't just kick off a project of this type without having all the phases rated as satisfactorily, because first we need to clearly define the conceptual frame of things. Based on this clear definition, we sort out the projects. So first, we build that conceptual model. We define the concept first with all the elements, characteristics that exist in our country. I know that these projects depend on the scope, on the clear objectives that our nations have, so we should make it all possible. Even though the challenge is huge, even though we might not achieve the desired success, but how have we evolved in these fields? Ecosystemically, we found solutions thanks to computer science programmers to budget and exercise the government budget correctly. We've seen the evolution of the systems that have been developed that give us intel capacity for the proper decision-making process to happen. I mean, we use information and transform it to properly analyze the historic reports to generate predictive reports or analysis. This sends us to another level. We can consolidate information from different government entities or agencies. We have templates that define the sources of information. The information is object of validation, transformation, and it's branched out for different purposes. We have operational systems that keep logs and records of our operations daily. They process transactions to integrate the whole ecosystem when we measure the basic assets here. To the right of your screen, you can all see that based on these steps towards evolution, we've implemented our computer science projects that have been developed, and ecosystemically, we have developed the whole pyramid that you see in the slide. So we have objectives, financial objectives, public management objectives here in the pyramid. We know how to use the systems that have been developed. We know how to implement them. It's a cross-sector impact. We all participate in the system. We have the financial core, the backbone, the node. Then we evolved and we placed ourselves in the middle of the pyramid when we have data, controls, audit, consolidated reports. We place ourselves in the middle of that pyramid, as I've told you. We continue working with the information we receive, and we're trying to be as efficient with the system as possible. We have admin data, stats data, and other accounting entries. All of that is very important. If we have a single database, it's centralized. It simplifies the operation and compatibility of other systems. The statistics systems, payment systems, and other systems can operate together. I mean, those are the systems that are critical, that measure accounting entries in different government agencies' departments. If the other departments don't receive the information from other systems, we need to get that. We need a pattern of indicators and these models to generate in the system that's been developed. We need to create one database that centralizes the data and helps as a source. It helps all the users. We have expectations. We want results. When we are going through that digital transformation of things, we depend less on external digitalized data. We upload the information and dump the information in digital files and have intelligent sources of information for the Treasury Department's activities. We have analytic tools, other instruments, interfaces that are transparent and open data sources. So that's how we constitute the ideal ecosystem for us. The objectives as part of a conceptual map definitely lead us to build a system, right? for management that's created through computer science and programmers because of a government instruction. The operations or transactions may vary. So many might think that these activities exist by default, just like that. But there's objectives. We have clear objectives. We have to achieve the projects. There's business processes that we study. We have to evaluate the conceptual model and the system that helps us administrate. We need to build a strong conceptual model and the business processes. That in the proper development of the business processes, if we develop it right, we're going to have the right results. We have this tool. Computer science experts or programmers developed these projects, and they were led by the IT departments in-house. So if we know all the processes that we have to create, those have to be sorted out and backed up correctly in the system for our projects. The authorities of government have to be covered by the development of the system at the right level, so the system should offer to the agencies the proper functions. It should be functional for all government agencies. Those functions are what support our processes of the business model. If you develop the right concept of the model, we will satisfy all the needs with the system of public administration, and it gives guidance to the implementation team. So the conceptual model is basic when we're going to build a system that helps us with accounting and finances in government. The scope has to include the specs, the specifications, the scope, business requirements, change requests, key business processes. That's when all the disciplines must interact to build that. It's like all the disciplines that interact and have their business processes have to know that they need to work together to link it all. The developer of the system must clarify what's not in the scope as part of management system. A programmer has to say what she can't do so we don't face mistakes. The professionals must let us know what is possible, what's not. There's lessons learned based on experience. We know what's good, we know what's bad. We know what we should try to use and what not. Sometimes we think that if we have a system, we just click a button, but we haven't given that system the data that it needs to have that button really react. And so there's detailed architecture in the system's development. We have to codify. The codification is part of another specific project. A conceptual model, in essence, has to be specific, deterministic, have clear functions for the system to work properly in government administration. So we could now understand that if we are involved in ambitious projects of this scope, we're changing a system, developing a system to support the amendments of all our laws and regulations, then we have to build robust products. The first product is the conceptual model. It should be great or excellent, and then we need the other specs, definitions. Key factors to create the conceptual model are the identification of functions. In all public sector developments or initiatives, we must make sure that we have the support, the budget, the professionals that are experts in their field to narrow down the gaps in the system. We have to implement a strategy that's solid, and in parallel, we have to develop the conceptual model. So I'll explain this fast. I'll focus on the core themes and all the items that constitute the conceptual business model. And what should a model have? It has a conceptual model leads us to have a decline in malfunctions. A well-built model can help us manage what government does clearly. We need to build that model. And we need to implement a commercial software or off-the-shelf software. That software has to be efficient. The governments could use the same license in the system for public management, and it should have it should have all the users satisfied. I mean, we don't have one model that could be used in general, or I mean, it's well developed. It's not universal, though. Some governments might adopt some conceptual models that have been implemented by other governments. So we should preserve the integrity of the model. So we should, as economies, we should develop conceptual models completely first. All the models or elements that constitute that model could be sourced from another country. And when we get another model from another country, we have to study it carefully. So all the disciplines that are those disciplines that are going to be using the model have to be part of it. We have to constitute a directive or steering committee that monitors and tracks the list of needs that all the users of the system have to satisfy the needs. Let's continue explaining. The objectives that we have when we develop these systems help us because we see a timeline. We see all the stages of the process, how the tool has been developed. That tool is something that we're going to use. So we've been working on each stages of the development of the tool or the system. We need to have specific objectives, and being specific will enable us to have immediate actions. We have to build a roadmap. And with that roadmap, we have the achievable objectives. We assess the achievable objectives in a bilateral way. We have clear objectives when we build the optimum system for public administration. So at the right of the screen, you see the types, and you see the evolution of what we're expecting. At the bedrock, you see all the phases that constitute that roadmap. We built that to be efficient in the economic side of things. We have to be in compliance with our controls. That's what the first objectives were, for us to administrate what we exercise in government correctly. We have assets and the centralized administration.
And so we will move into the center in the red frameworks, and there will be a macro-fiscal sustainability that will give the traditional controlling inputs and also macro-fiscal multi-annual management decentralized. And here we have the second generation of the system and the efficacy that we want to reach. I don't know how much time I have left. You told me some minutes ago, but I didn't pay attention. Okay, and this is the basis of the conceptual model. In one more second, I will finish. And so we have defined a roadmap in order to go step by step. We begin in the integral vision of the Panama, the ISMO establishment, and to extend the financial management system and the system for taking decisions. And also we include all the products that each framework has to produce. In the national direction of accounting that we lead and where we receive many international agencies and many other states support. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Accountant Aracelly Méndez, for sharing us with your experience. And now we will begin the QA session. One question for Accountant Clara Hernández. Why did you decide to apply the IPSASB by the indirect method? Well, we considered that was the method that will be perfect to be adopted because it allows to be flexible. We couldn't do it directly because there were some provisions of the Constitution that do not allow us to do it directly. So it allows us to have a fluid communication, technical communication that make us understand, because sometimes the standard has certain terminology that we do not use very frequently. In Guatemala, we don't use it so much, so we consider that it wouldn't be convenient, and we apply the indirect method. Yes, we are stepping forward very slowly but confident in this indirect method. Thank you. There is another question for accountant Clara Luz Hernández. How did you establish the coverage cycle in order to implement the standards? In fact, we established it after so much investigation. There are countries that have progressed a lot. We contacted many countries in order to see their experience, and we have taken as example Chile, Ecuador, that has given us a lot of support, and we have considered and introducing all the steps that we think are important during the implementation steps. So we implement a modified model in order to identify correctly all the steps where each standards must be included. And it has been very convenient for us to have the 9 steps. Maybe we can add another step. And well, we will decide it later on throughout the time. Thank you. This question is for accountant Aracelly Méndez. What was the most difficult when designing the conceptual ISMO model? Thank you for that question. Well, it is difficult to answer. It is the same project. First, I was invited to reach to the National Accounting Division. And, well, I saw the challenge of how to adopt the accounting management model in Panama. And so I saw that the systems of financial management were oriented to information. And everybody was saying, let's change the previous system and let's implement the current system. And so when I accepted to be in the general direction, I saw that I needed to overcome the financial challenge. And I said, well, I do not know anything of IT, so let's use the current system. And I made a series of diagnoses and analyses, and I asked the support of 2 international bodies, and I saw that we couldn't improve it. And so I decided to implement a new one. But I faced a problem, because that problem then became a challenge. And my question to the minister was, do you want me to change a tool, or do you want public finances from the point of view of financial management for your government? What can you tell me? I do not know anything about IT, and everything has been supported by IT people. So what I think is to carry out and use the financial management model that we have in our country, and we spent 1.5 years just designing the financial management model, not even the conceptual model. And so we were gradually moving, and we hired a consultancy company in order to globalize the implementation, and we replicated it as Brazil and Chile. So this has meant a series of challenges, and when I went into the system that was most difficult to my responsibility, I saw that the great difficulty was to spread the new implementation, because I found a lot of resilience to adapt to change among all the personnel. And also I needed to divide the implementation in stages in order to include everything that includes a project of these types. They have three levels of acceptance. First, something that you identify immediately. Those who are concerned because maybe they will be substituted by the technology, by the changes, when people are not prepared to accept changes. So, and the third group of people was the group of people that are always in silence, but behind are doing everything possible in order for the new implementation not to work. So when you manage a change, you have to face these three kind of people. That is the main challenge. The other aspect is methodology, a lot of methodology of a project, and a good structure of good committees. So by having these, that guarantees the success of the implementation, and you will be suffering less. We have another question for accountant Clara Hernández. Looking to the projects, current projects of IPSASB, of our update in the conceptual model and the chapter 7 referring to measurement. In Guatemala, in the indirect measurement, how much time do you think will take the implementation according to the IPSASB, according to the chapter they have for measurement? Well, we are referring to chapter 7, right? Well, that also implies a big challenge. Because chapter 7 talks about the measurement model of financial statements, the assets by the historical, artistic, and cultural patrimony, and replacement assets. Well, we consider the standards that we had. We classify them, and in a period of 3 years, we thought on how we were going to implement them. But then the pandemic came and we were affected. And after the pandemic, we have to restructure everything. And right now, I think that everything needs to be restructured. We talk with the IDB and with Marcela in relation to this because we need to restructure everything that we distributed the implementation of NIC-SP because in a period of time during a year, we analyzed the NIC-SP, but with the pandemic, everything changed. We are going to redistribute the analysis of the NIC-SP in the following years. Well, thank you very much. The accountant Aracelly Méndez, what recommendation would you give to those countries that plan to design a conceptual model for the information systems? Well, part of my presentation was that because as I have seen these, I really pointed out the most important steps during my presentation in order to implement every step with the information exchange. You will have always problems because every project is different to the previous one and you have to abide by the guidelines. This is like the stock market. This is not a plain vanilla. No, there is not one bonus similar to the other. So that is the challenge when you implement a system. We have had the experience of a project that is based on a market product and it's in an SAP platform. You can have the best tool, but if you don't have the team that can give you a technical assistant and the best users, you may fail. So please train your people since the beginning. The human factor is key. And so I will address my answer by telling people, please train your people and make them functional. Know the business, and the business is public finance. Public finance management. Technology is in the middle. The market has technology, and those having the resources in order to have in-house developers. And when the projects When they finish, the technology finishes. But if you have your project in-house, then it will always be evolving. Okay? In our country, we have decentralized companies, and we have the revenues of VTAC too, and I have the debt with SIGADE, and the pre-audit done by the controllership. Well, we need to answer everything to the controller and also have a good structured budget. Please get the support of all these people, because if not, you will have a lot of headaches. Thank you very much. And we thank the speakers for their contribution and for sharing their experiences with us. Thank you, the audience, for your kind attention. And now, the chairman of FOCAL, that will leave FOCAL this year, will give to the speakers acknowledgments for their outstanding participation in the 8th edition of the Forum of FOCAL.